Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you all. Sorry I'm a couple minutes late here. I had a last-minute emergency with one of my daughters, but I'm glad I was able to make it. And so why don't we just take a couple minutes and just settle into our bodies and remember why we are here. Also, just gently connecting to that quiet presence of innocence. The silence that's here, the spaciousness that's here. And just to feel that which is awake, that which is aware. Right here, right now. And so just settling into your body. Just feeling, opening, and just experiencing. That which is beyond mind, beyond emotion, beyond personality. And I invite you just to join me in just checking in with your crown chakra. And just noticing, is my crown chakra open? Is it receptive? In the words of the Buddha, is the mind sky-like, spacious and empty? Or is it full of ideas and thoughts and this and that? And if so, that's okay. Just see if you can unhook from that. Give yourself permission. Just to put everything down. Settle into the body. And again, just noticing the sky-like nature of mind. That your presence is naturally spacious. And so we can include our body and just feel into your heart, feeling this gentle radiance and tenderness in your heart. In Buddhism, they often speak about this, the soft spot, like a tenderness on the heart, where you carry your pain, your sadness, your heartache. And just giving yourself permission in a compassionate way just to feel into the soft spot. And notice there's tenderness beneath the pain, or any holding or any numbness. There's tenderness beneath it. And then I'm going to invite you just to include the belly and just take some deep breaths. Just feeling into this quiet strength in the belly. A strength that outlives every moment. Outlives every trauma and tragedy. And just smiling, that you took a couple minutes here to check in. To open to your Buddha nature. To be receptive to something greater than just the random movement of thought. And so again, I'll look at you all and smile and and welcome you here. Welcome you here. It really is precious that we can meet in this way. To meet in this way. And so, about an hour and a half ago, I was just trying to go through my emails and, copy all the questions to make sure I have them tonight. And as I was beginning to do this, I got a phone call, and normally I don't answer my phone; it's just on silent. But fortunately, it was at least on vibrate, and I picked it up and looked, and I saw my older daughter was calling, and I picked up the phone, of course, and she's one of the few people I answer the phone for. And she called me, and she was hurt. She was on a trail run, and she'd fallen on some loose gravel, kind of down the hill a little bit. So, I had to run and get her, and she was pretty banged up, and just clean her up and bandage her and take dress her wounds and then give her a ride home. And this is how life is sometimes. Sometimes we trip, we fall, we get beat up, we bleed, we get banged around. And it's difficult, this world, it's just difficult. As a parent, I was reflecting that my older daughter, she's my baby, and like with your friends, your family, your partner, we want to save them on the path. We want to save them from harm. We don't want to see them suffer and hurt. But of course, you can't stop it. You can't stop people from hurting. And so I did my best to take care of her. She kept telling me she was going to pass out, and holding her hand, and I had to put the peroxide on her wounds, and while she wanting to scream and get all the dirt and gravel out of her and all that kind of thing. It's just heartbreaking to see yourself suffer, to see someone else suffer. It's heartbreaking. Especially when we connect human to human. But when we connect on a deeper level, soul to soul, I see that she is totally and completely fine. She's whole, complete. She's not weak or frail or vulnerable. On a soul level, I see she's resilient. On a human level, I want to cry and just carry her home and put her in a little protective, heavenly, etheric chamber where she doesn't have to ever hurt again. But, that doesn't work here on planet Earth. We all get beat up, myself included. And so just a reminder again of the suffering of life and, just this natural desire to try to save, to try to take care of. And of course, that's a beautiful intention to want to take care of, to heal, to help. But we can't stop. We can't stop pain and suffering from happening. It will continue here on planet Earth. And so I had to take a backward step, after I cleaned her up and just smile, give her to God, the ultimate healer. And see that, as souls, we outlive everything. As humans, not so much. As humans, we'll all meet our death. And, we'll break arms and this kind of thing. We'll get beat up. But our true nature doesn't die. Doesn't die. So a good reminder. Anyways, one thing I did notice that I thought was quite humorous, just about human nature, as I was rushing down to get her, I saw this guy driving a car, and I looked in, inside, because I drive this big van. It's pretty high up, and so I was looking down into his car, and his whole front end was just destroyed. It was gone. And, he looked like he was fiddling with something, and his girlfriend, partner, whatever it was, she with him, she was messing around with something, and they looked like maybe they're getting ready to smoke something. And they just looked like trouble, they looked like two, I use this word, hooligans, just because I love that word. And, he was just charging the car behind, the car in front of him, just trying to push the other car out of the way. And he was already missing his whole front end, like no lights, no grill, no bumper, no nothing, just completely banged up. And he was just going for it, trying to push someone out of the way through an intersection, just going way too fast. And I smiled, chuckled a little bit and said, oh yeah, this is kind of what human nature is like. We go, banging our head against a wall. And many of us, we don't learn. We don't, excuse me, we don't change course. We just keep going at it the same way we were going before. With these two characters I was checking out, they probably won't change until they go to jail. I've met a lot of people like that. I've worked with a lot of people who said, yeah, I didn't really change until, I got locked up a couple times. And then I changed course. Now, hopefully, with you and I, we're not so bullheaded. Hopefully, if we're reasonably awake here on planet Earth, and you touch the hot stove, you realize, oh yeah, I probably shouldn't do that. I'm awake, I'm aware. My heart is open, I'm receptive to what works. I'm receptive to what does not work. So a big part of being awake on the path is having the consciousness to change course when you realize what you're doing isn't working. And it's just a good thing to notice within your own consciousness if you're, you keep getting hurt, if you keep getting in the same type of relationships, if you continue to have the same types of thoughts you had 5 years ago, there's a good chance you're not listening to that which is deeper. That which is deeper. And so are you willing to sit with that, to open to the truth, and let it set you free? And most people think, when the truth sets you free, it's like this beautiful joyride. But a lot of times when the truth sets you free, it's pretty harsh. It's like a slap upside the face. And you realize, oh, okay, what I'm doing is not working. And so now I have to change directions in this giant aircraft carrier of an ego. Turn this boat around in a different direction. And that may take some time, it may take some effort. It may require that you begin to do things much more differently. There was one fella who I was working with, and he was telling me that he meditated every day, told me he did all this yoga, told me that he was going to counseling and seeing all these healers and shifting his diet. And I'd been meeting with him for some time, And then I met him in person, and I realized, oh, he was barely meditating. He barely did any yoga. By meeting with healers, he means he just kind of Googled some on the internet. And by changing his diet, he meant he ate good 1 day a week. And I realized, oh, okay. Sometimes people talk a big talk, but they're unwilling to do the heavy lifting. With healing, it's all about consistency, not about making a New Year's resolution and working out for 2 or 3 days, but it's about consistency. The only way we change is through consistency. Consistency. So if we're speaking about opening our heart, we're opening our heart consistently, not just once. And saying, no, this stuff doesn't work. We're meditating consistently. We're doing yoga consistently. And so anyways, all right, so a couple questions here. And please, if you emailed me something, just given my evening here, I didn't really get to the email, so you can throw them up in the chat. That'd be helpful for me. So here's one from Kyle. Hi, Craig. A few weeks ago, you said something about once I stepped across to the other side. I'm wondering if you are meaning entering into the peaceful emptiness, or that you could have meant, or could you have meant to see what death is like before the body actually dies? Also, do you believe this is a permanent step, or if we go back and forth between that space and our ego mind once we experience that space for the first few times? Thanks so much. Yeah, Kyle, if you're asking me what I said a couple weeks ago, I have no idea. My mind, besides what happened with my daughter earlier, I can't remember what I did today. So let's see here. Have I stepped to the other side of death? I think you said something about that. Yeah. I think I've told this story a lot, but I about drowned in a river because it was 5 or 6 years ago, and everything went silent, and I was actually quite happy to die. What I wasn't quite happy about was when I, came back to life and, was bleeding all over the place, stuck on the wrong side of the river, on a whitewater rapid river, and couldn't get back to the other side where I needed to get to the hospital. But yeah, death is pleasant. Not encouraging anyone to go to the other side by suicide or anything like that. But, when we cross over to the other side, you'll go to a heaven realm. Now, there's many heaven realms. But yeah, you'll enter into a heaven realm. So let me read your question again. Did I enter a peaceful emptiness? Yeah, I mean, there's different degrees of peaceful emptiness. Like right now, I feel peacefully empty in a deep and profound way. I stepped across to the other side. Yeah, I don't know what I was referring to, but sometimes I'll go into samadhi states, and that's where God will just come into me and just make everything stop, and mind will go blank, the body will cease to exist. And I have to be careful not to speak about it too much, because then it starts to happen. Yeah, but sometimes that happens. And, you'll find on the path, the further you walk, that God will start opening you up to what I call heaven realms. And by heaven realms, I don't necessarily mean that they're, like up in outer space, or even a realm that's just purely for after you die. But there's what I mean by heaven realm is there's all sorts of realms. Like, just say earthly reality is one realm. But there's all types of realms. There's a realm of Christ consciousness, of Buddha nature. There's hundreds of Buddha realms. In Tibetan Buddhism, they tend to map those. But one of the things that my teacher taught me or showed me was, say, how to traverse, I think that's the right word, and to open into different realms. And sometimes it's by will, sometimes it's just through sitting and being open and receptive, and a new realm will come into you. This whole teaching that Aurobindo was bringing forth was basically he was trying to speed up evolution so that Earth could transition into more of a heaven realm. So instead of this being an animal realm, an animal/human realm, where we're killing each other and fighting with each other, Aurobindo was envisioning and inviting for Earth to evolve into a more holy realm. A more holy realm. Let's see the second part of your question. Also, do you believe this is a permanent step, or if we go back and forth between that space, that realm, and our ego mind, once we experience that realm for the first few times? Yeah. Beautiful. So that makes more sense what you're asking. So when God is showing me these new realms, it's not just for like fun or just like a little thing for me to space out into. God normally brings us these new realms in order for us to step into them, to begin to embody them. And as we embody them, they become a more permanent aspect of our nature. A more permanent aspect of our nature. And so if any of you have went, for example, and visited, say, like the great Indian saint Ammaji, like when you step into her presence, like she's bringing a whole heaven realm, down into the space, down into that space. And I've told this story before, but the first time I took my mother to see Amma, it was at this giant hotel in downtown Santa Fe. And it's at these like big event center kind of places. And I opened the door to where Amma was, and there was, I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5,000 people seated inside. And when I opened the door, my mother just got hit with this burst of light. She started crying. She felt just overwhelmed as her heart chakra was blown open, by the presence of Amma. And so what is the presence of Amma? It's basically Amma is bringing a realm of divinity, of just tremendous love and compassion and light. And when you're in her presence, and you'll feel it. It's like this whole container, this whole realm. It's magnificent. There's many Indian saints I visited in my travel to India, and you could jump from ashram to ashram, and you'll notice that each ashram had its own realm of divinity that the saint or the master had brought. And so they embodied it. And it became permanent. One of the fun places to visit here in the United States is in Encinitas, California, the Yogananda ashram. I went there one day, and I can't remember if Yogananda's room is open every day or if they just open it on his birthday. But I went there. I thought I went there on Yogananda's birthday once, and they let you walk by his room, like his own personal room. And his room was just like this temple. It was infused with light. And so you felt one thing while you were just walking through the gardens. It just felt kind of lovely, being on these cliffs overlooking the ocean. But when I went into, the center, the ashram, and walked by his room, you could just feel light pouring out of it. And so the big thing on the spiritual path is, it's like, where do you place your time and your attention? Where do you place your time and your attention? And so where you place that, you begin to build a foundation of presence. So, say like, if we were all watching Fox News right now, CNN News, Democracy Now, whatever, our favorite news source is, we would be building a foundation of fear, of anxiety, of tension, because news is basically just telling you everything that's wrong with the world. We're going to tell you what's wrong with the Democrats. We'll tell you what's wrong with the Republicans, with these people, with those people. Here's all the bad things happening in the world. And so, like if you ever walk into a news room, a news station place, there's tension in the air. There's just tension. That's what they're building. I was at the park with my younger daughter today, and I just laid down in the grass and was just watching the leaves fall. And we were just having a nice time in the park, and I got up and I realized there was this teenage boy, and he was just standing like right by us, but he was like this, on his phone, just so lost. And I looked at him, and I'd love just to sometimes be inappropriate, just like all of a sudden, let out a big scream or a big noise, just when I'm in public, and he was like, looked up for a moment, and then just saw it was just, some crazy man, myself, harassing him in the park. And then he got right back into his world. And I was just seeing if I could open him into the beauty of the present moment. But maybe he was texting with some girls online, found something more exciting or something. But, we all live in our own realm. But with your time and attention, you can open into new realms of divinity. Like the great teacher Adyashanti, his big thing is, peace and spaciousness. And so when you walk into his presence, you feel that. And just like this quiet immediacy of being. And so wherever you place your time and attention grows. If it's on the Twitter feed, you're going to be all over the place. With the news cycle. If your time and attention is in your heart, if your time and attention is in your crown chakra, it's open and receptive, you may discover that the intelligence of the universe starts showing you something greater. And the more you place your time and attention there, the more you embody it, the more it becomes foundational. I once gave us a talk at Vegan Fest, of all places. And, these guys were, it was like 4 speakers. I was one of them. And, they were these animal rights activists, and they were, doing the Dwight Schrute thing, just banging on the table and, moving their hands and, screaming about how everyone in the world who's not a vegan is wrong. And when it came my turn to talk, I just gave a talk on love, not being non-judgmental and living compassionately. The next speaker after me just like turned around and looked at me and was like, whoa, like that guy's on, I want to be on what that guy's on. Like maybe I need to meditate more or something. And because, he was getting ready to, tell everyone again, like we're all wrong if we're not a vegan or something, being real preachy. But, the room changed when I spoke. And it was hilarious because it was just so radically different, because I'm not a I don't know what the right word is. I'm not a screaming activist. It's not, what I'm here to do. What I'm not here to do. I'm here to bring forth something different. Something different. And so thanks, Kyle. That's a beautiful question. Richard has been patient. And so let me see, Richard. Let me make sure I got all the buttons in the right place. Can you unmute yourself, or do I have to do something? Okay, try now, Richard.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
Cool. Hi, everyone. Good to see you. Good to be with you. Yeah. Okay, so Craig, my question today is regarding, and I feel like this has been asked once before, but I'd like to ask it more broadly. So during our meditation, it's very common that you'll kind of call in various beings, Skanda, Hilda, who's also Lazuma, right? Lazuma and Hilda are the same.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. And Nityananda,
Yeah.
Master Hilarion. That's just been a couple times though. Um, I'm really curious though about these beings. I know that you talked about like David would walk with many masters, so they would come into the room with him. So it's kind of like a part of the teaching. Did it start with David? Was this true of Hilda as well? Who does this come from? Yeah, you don't see this with a ton of teachers. I'm sure they're out there, but most people who are like mainstream non-dual are not bringing in light masters, right? They're there with them, no doubt, no doubt, but they're not bringing them in. And so, really curious to just hear about this part of the teaching.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a beautiful question. So, yeah, my teacher, David, he was a student of a Krishnamurti. Like that's who he was studying with, and he was, really into the teachings of Krishnamurti, which is, what the right word? I'll just say classically non-dual. Very direct.
Hey, which Krishnamurti?
J. Krishnamurti, and he the one who the Theosophical Society found and kind of raised. And then one day, someone was telling my teacher David, you need to meet this lady Hilda. And David had heard some things about Hilda because Hilda was also a great healer. And David was like, no, I just think I just want to kind of, keep my path like in this narrow kind of container. And, the person kept pushing David. And then eventually at some point, I think David was at a house, and Hilda had come over. And she just came over, and she just, David opened the door, and he just looked at her. And he was just absolutely mesmerized. She had these eyes. I mean, she was just a living master, just an incredible being. And she took him over to the couch. She sat him down and just held his hand for like 3 hours and taught a class. And that was it, And then David started to, I think David was living in Los Angeles at the time, and he had to move to New York City where Hilda was living. And so he was with her for a decade or so and became her main disciple. And Hilda, basically was this being who, she was just open. And all these masters had come to her throughout her life. Throughout her childhood, she would have these great visions of Joan of Arc. And she went to India when she was quite young. She was a professional dancer. She went to India and was like a traveling dancer. And right away, she just started meeting these great saints. And they all invited Hilda to come live there. Like even Yogananda in the United States invited Hilda to come live. She was with Satya Sai Baba for a long time. And so she would give talks. Like if Sai Baba didn't want to teach for a day, Hilda would teach for him. She'd send him out. He would send her out there. And she just traveled with and met all these saints. She was in India for 17 years. And this was even before Ram Dass went there. She was one of the first Westerners really to go. And so she just was one of these beings of light who was just radically open and just had master after master coming. And she could call on them. She'd just call on them. They'd come in the room. Sometimes they would just show up. And then, of course, David, through spending so much time with her, developed a similar ability and would just call on these beings. So Hilda had a real closeness to Skanda. Skanda basically is the god of light, like the general of all the gods. He's really revered and worshipped in South India. And like any Indian god, he has a number of names. Jaya Skanda, Jaya Muruga, Kartikeya. So there are a couple other Skanda names. And so it was just part of the tradition that this pathway was open. And so yeah, it's unique to it's I don't know if unique's the right. I think it's unique because when I go to different traditions, in the Buddhist tradition, it's pretty cut and dry. We're just calling upon Buddha nature, and unless you get into Tibetan Buddhism, then they start calling on all kinds of stuff. All kinds of beings, dakinis and this and that. And it's just forces. They're forces of divinity, whether you believe in it or not, like the actual character and what they look like, it makes no difference. But you can feel the force. And so we call upon those forces into our life. And just like, to build upon what Kyle was asking, you can develop a relationship. Just like if we're a good Christian, we develop a relationship with Jesus, with Christ. We might develop a relationship with Mary or with Saint Francis or Saint Michael and so you can call forth these beings into your life. And so different lineages have different connections and, like a whole array of heaven realms to open into. And not to make it confusing or new agey in any way, but I just look at it like you can tune in to Fox News right now and have one experience. You could tune into CNN and have a different experience. You could tune into the realm of Skanda and have a radically different experience here on planet Earth. Like if we all hang out and, do drugs all day, listen to gangster rap, we're going to have one kind of experience. That's the energy, that's a vibrational field we're tuning into. But if you tune into, say, the vibration of, a great master, then that starts to become your field, the field that you walk in. And it can protect you, it can uphold you, and then eventually it becomes part of your being. Part of your being, part of who and what you are. So some teachers say, oh, it's a crutch, and it's new agey, or it's just something you do when you get high and then you leave it. And you have to go back and forth with it, chasing it. And it can be that way if like if you're just someone who's chasing, like the people who just go to kirtan all the time and they get really high going to kirtan. It's like chasing that Friday night kirtan experience, But like if you look at, say, great kirtan teacher in the United States, like Krishna Das, he gave his life to it. And so he can invoke the presence of Neem Karoli Baba. He can invoke the presence of Krishna, through singing, through the chanting. And then I assume when he's driving down the road, he doesn't have to chant. He can feel the presence of Hanuman with him. And just this grace is flowing through his body, through his form, and it changes his psyche. And so that's what we're inviting. That's what we're inviting. And so, I'm just calling upon some of the great connections that Hilda had, that Deva had, and that, that I have. Opening to these. And, it's a lot of times it's not that even that I'm calling upon them. Because normally what I do is I just sit, not kind of, I'll just use this word. I sit stupid, empty. And things come to me. By stupid, empty, I mean Craig's not thinking, oh, I need to call on this. I just sit and I'm empty. And then I'll get a little knock at the door of my consciousness from Skanda, from Master Hilarion, from Hilda. I'll say, oh, okay. So I call their name to invite them into, the presence of the Sangha, who's ever tuned in. And then you feel it in the room if you're receptive. I was laughing with my older daughter today. She was telling me about a friend of hers who wrote something on Instagram, calling someone a hater. I don't think I've ever said that word, hater, but sometimes I look out if I'm with a very Buddhist crowd, very Nondual crowd. Sometimes there's some haters in the room, in the sense that they're open to nothing. They're open to nothing but, say, the direct experience of peace. And they don't even know how to be open to that because they're meditating in such a rigid way, such a forceful way, such a precise, I'm only going to open like this part of my being. And, I have to kind of chuckle a little bit because, well, that's not really how to meditate, to meditate is to be radically open, to be receptive. If you want to open to peace, you have to be really vast, you have to be open-hearted. You can't just open just like right here in this little realm and reduce God to something small and simple, or reduce awakening. I mean, we are awakening to all of life, all of creation. It's a massive thing. It's not just one real small generic realm. And I'll say this, and this probably will come off as very judgmental, but I've met a lot of non-dual teachers. And what I see in their experience and in their teaching is they teach in a very limited way. Very, like a minuscule realm of divinity they talk about, teach about, open to. And for me, I was trained in a way where we open to everything. And we open to, this basic humility that God knows better than I do. So I'm going to open to the intelligence of the universe and let life show me my next step. I'm going to open to the intelligence of the Creator. Let the Creator lead me, guide me of what I need to focus on, what's important. What's important. And so sometimes a particular master will come. And I'm not really a visual guy, so I don't want you all to think that I'm getting this vision of the great master. Sometimes I'll just get a little glimpse of them. But what I really get is this presence. I'm a presence guy, and so I'll feel them. It'll be like a new power, new energy. Will just drop into the room. It normally takes my breath away. And I'll say, oh, okay. I need to put everything down and pay attention to this. And make sure, I'm open to what's coming forward. And if you hear anything from the last couple of minutes, what I've been speaking about, it's that. It's just the willingness to listen in an open-hearted, receptive way. We're saying, what is life trying to teach me, trying to show me? Whether we're getting in a car accident, and we destroyed the whole front end and our car doesn't have lights anymore. What is life trying to show me? Maybe life's trying to show me to slow down. If we're more of a spiritual person, we're saying, can you sit, again, stupid, empty, but receptive. By stupid, empty, it's not thinking, not grasping. Buddha taught a lot about this. Not grasping at something, but just more like a lotus flower, open, receptive to the sun shining upon you. Because there's so much holiness, there's so much divinity, even here in this dark world. And it's wanting just to pour into you. And it has a very unique, individualized, personal teaching for all of you, for exactly where you are on the path. And can you listen to that? And a lot of people get frustrated because they they listen with their head. I even see people, they squint their eyes and they look up to their forehead. And I say, no, don't look there. You're just looking into your mind. And they're looking to hear the booming voice of God. Normally grace comes just in these gentle waves. And it's just gentle whispers. They just, guide you. And so we have to go through this silent doorway. People think that God is loud, but God's normally only loud if you're being ridiculously stubborn, like being an idiot. Then God has to slap you in the face and be loud in a way that's generally painful. And so we have to learn to listen in a really, gentle way, childlike way. Like with my little girl, sometimes we'll be riding bikes and, she's close to the ground on her little bike. And she'll just scream at me, Dad, stop, just scream. I'll be like, oh my God, okay, we're stopping. What's up? And she'd get off her bike and she'll say, Dad, there's a roly-poly. So we'll get off our bikes, we'll go look at the roly-poly in the road or the trail or whatever it is. And it's just like that type of gentleness of just listening, being open and seeing a teeny little roly-poly. Oh yeah, and then we open into that realm. Everything stops. And it's innocent. There's a freedom there. There's a preciousness there. Like today she had me, I took her to the park and, they have slides and swings and all that kind of stuff. We brought the ball, we were kicking the ball. And And I was like, do you want to play on the park, the swings or whatever? And Daddy push you. And she's like, no, she just started picking up leaves, that had fallen off the trees. And then next thing you know, we're just in this divine world, like of the fairies. Just looking at the beautiful, just the veins of the leaves and seeing the colors, just opening and just into the supreme innocence and intelligence of nature. Because she's listening. I mean, how many adults actually look at leaves anymore? I mean, they're just looking at those darn phones, being so busy running here, running there. But to get down on your hands and knees and look at the reds and the yellows and the pinks and the oranges and all the veins and the leaves. So it's that type of listening where you let everything stop, let your mind be empty, and you open. And so whether you're opening, to the presence of nature and all its healing grace and divinity, or the presence of God, or I like to do both. Love nature, God and nature. I love God and heavenly God. I love Buddha nature God. And can we open to this and allow our experience to be multidimensional instead of just being, a random mess of thoughts that chase you here and chase you there, that we're all enslaved to. And so, this is a practice. And, one of the things that I'd like to say is it takes, you just have to develop this as a new muscle, a new way of being. And for a lot of people, it's really frustrating because I'm just going to say this. A lot of people don't have what I call the God gene. And by that, I mean just instant trust and faith. I came into this world with a God gene, and so it's just very easy for me to open. But I've trained people, and it's just, you have to put down your fear. You have to put down your story that God is punishing you or that life is bad. Because when you have the idea that life is just suffering, all your chakras close. It's just a natural thing. Like if I trained you every day, life is dangerous, life is bad, life hurts, it's always going to hurt. That type of training, which is what most of us have, that makes your chakras close. You become guarded, you become armored. And so to step into what I'm speaking about, sometimes we just need to remind ourselves, I'm safe. It's okay to open. I'm safe. Breathe deeply. That's why yoga is so good. It's safe to breathe. It's safe to open. It's safe just to lay here in Shavasana. Just receive the quietude that's here. And so a lot of us have to retrain our egos because our ego is like this giant veil over our divinity. Just to retrain the ego. It's okay just to relax and melt and open. Like if we had a mother who's, what do they call it, a helicopter parent, just like always in our business, like one of my, with my older daughter, she had some of her friends as a kid, some of her friends' mom, the mom was a pediatrician. And so the kids were like wearing a helmet on the slide on the playground. It's like, take that damn helmet off and let the kid play, don't terrorize, when you're a pediatrician, you're teaching the kid like, oh my God, you're going to die in every moment. You're going to get hurt, And so you just train the kids to just be terrified. And, she had them in car seats till they were like 8 years old. They look like there's something really wrong with them being an 8-year-old sitting in a big car seat. And so sometimes we need to recondition ourselves that it's safe to open, it's safe to feel, safe to connect, it's safe to receive. And a lot of people don't know this, don't know that it's safe to receive. because we've been beaten up by life. And so we have to retrain our psyche, our body, our animal nature. And it's safe to be open. When you've retrained it that it's safe to open, you start to see it's safe to trust, it's safe to experience, it's safe to feel. And then you realize, oh, God is here. Because God comes into us through the realm of feeling. That's the realm of the direct experience. It's hard to experience anything if we unconsciously don't believe it's okay to feel, it's safe to feel. So anyways, I will say this, and I'll just acknowledge this about, for many years I had great hesitation about talking about my teacher, David, because he always asked that I not, like he liked just to live an anonymous life. He doesn't have a YouTube channel. I laughed just thinking about that. I think once upon a time we almost created a website, but he wanted to live just, outside of the limelight. Hilda lived in the limelight. She had just a massive following back in the 80s. And like anyone who was a great saint or master who came to the United States often came to Hilda's first, and they would teach at her Wednesday night meetings alongside her. And she offered that big thing to him, massive. What the right words? She just had a lot of students. But anyways, he said, "No, I want something very small. I don't want to be in the light." And so, part of me honoring him has been biting my tongue and not speaking about him too much. And so, if any of you have seen that I've been reserved ever about speaking about him, it's because of that. So I think I'll just end it at that. Let's see what else. There's a couple other questions here. Here's a question from Taylor. Craig, I'm befuddled by the process of letting go. From one view, it seems that I let go, and from another, that makes no sense, and I am utterly confused. It's as though the karmic knot lets go of itself. I find myself fascinated by how, why, or when this happens compared to other times when the struggle persists. What can you say about this? Excuse me. From one view, it seems that I let go. From another view, it makes no sense. I'm utterly confused. It's as if though the karmic knot lets go of itself. Yes, so both are true. Like in the beginning on the path, we make effort to let go. We do things to let go. We go to therapy and we let go. We try somatic experiencing and we let go. We try dancing and we let go through moving the body. We try yoga and we naturally let go. We actively, consciously, sometimes even egotistically, try to breathe into the pain. We say, I'm going to forgive. And as we mature, that tends to soften and soften more and more. And then we begin to notice that letting go happens, that it is happening. It's naturally happening. Like when I was sitting today, laying, underneath the trees and watching the leaves just fall. The trees aren't thinking about letting go. They're not efforting to let go. Like that knot, like you said, the karmic knot just naturally releases. And the leaves fall from the tree. Our bodies are hardwired to hold on to pain. They're also hardwired to let go of pain. Our divine nature doesn't want to really hold on to anything. It's naturally letting go. And I think the further you walk on the path, you just realize letting go is happening, whether you like it or not. I'm amazed how much people hold on to things, but whether you like it or not, letting go is happening. You really see it as you get older. Just things just start to fall away. And so what can I say about it? This is the way of things. I think that's what the Buddha would say. This is the way of things. Things come and things go. But the more you wake up, you begin to notice, especially when the hara is waking up, that things just start just dropping out of you. It's quite amazing when the hara starts to wake up. I can remember just like walking down the street and I turn around and look because I just feel like a huge chunk of karma just fall out of me. Sometimes I wouldn't even know what it was about. I just feel all of a sudden tremendously lighter. For a couple of years, I would just sit and for no reason, I would just start crying and crying and feel these old knots of karma just emptying out of me. And so if there's anything we can do, it's just my basic teaching, which is to breathe, to feel, to open, to experience, and letting go happens. When you're not afraid of pain, letting go just naturally happens. I wrote this book like 4 years ago, and then I started this project with Rick Archer, this nonprofit for spiritual teachers, and anyway, I stepped away from the nonprofit, and my friend Suzanne said, "Craig, let's get this book published." And so, hopefully, probably not by the end of October, maybe, but by the end of November, there should be a new book out. And so we were editing it. She's doing the editing it, and I'm just reviewing it. But there's this line from the book that she said really stood out for her. Pain, when fully felt, naturally releases. It was something like that, just like pain, when you fully feel it, it naturally releases. For most of us, we just avoid pain all day long. But pain, when you fully feel it, it just naturally releases. And when you meditate a lot, when you begin to open into your non-dual nature, and you stop resisting, there's a compassionate open-heartedness toward life. There's just a willingness to feel everything. So when the heart's open and awake, we're not running away from our pain and our mind. And we move into the next wave of awakening, the hara awakening, which is things they just start to release. They start to empty out of you without any effort. And so in the beginning, if you need to effort, it's, can you breathe? Can you feel? Can you open? Can you experience? Beautiful question, Taylor. It was more of a reflection. Thank you. Yeah. from one perspective, it's God awakening to herself. God awakening to God. And that's the natural letting go process. God, the God in you, letting go of what God has held on to. Hi, Craig. Does the energy of the mind get stronger and crazier as the awakening goes deeper? The mind feels more desperate now. I'll say this. There's a period of time, like a real cleansing time, purifying time, healing time. I think healing is a much better word. We tend to go through a healing period post-awakening where lots of things come forward, lots of energies, lots of pain, lots of confusion. And for a lot of people, they think they're doing something wrong. But this is a natural part of the process. So after we experience the transcendent, sometimes it's like this. I'll just say it this way. Sometimes it's like this. You open, you have a wonderful awakening. Everything's peaceful and transcendent and quiet. You're like, oh, wow, this is what it means to be enlightened. And you're just kind of like walking around in your vast, spacious Buddha nature. And some people have that for a minute, for a day, for a month. For me, it was like that for a year and a half of just being absolutely drunk on emptiness. And then out of nowhere, it was like, boom, as soon as the heart started to open, the heart started to purge every unconscious wound, pain, shadow that I felt, that the planet felt, that, every childhood memory just started coming into my consciousness. And yeah, it seemed like it really sped up. It got really messy for a number of years. All kinds of trauma, pain, confusion was being brought into the light. And keep in mind, it's being brought into the light to be met with love, to be met with kindness. So the body stores cellular memory, cellular pain. And so as you wake up, part of the liberation process is all these things coming forward. And the way things are released is not through looking at them and saying, those are not real, those are a story. That doesn't heal. That doesn't release things. That re-represses them. You have to look at those things and say, wow, that was so painful. I'm going to sit with this. I'm going to breathe into it. I'm not going to get carried away with the story of what happened. I'm going to sit open-heartedly and feel it. And like when I went to see my daughter today who hurt herself, I wasn't concerned about the story of how she tripped and fell, in this gravel and fell, off a switchback and down the hill or mountain or whatever. I was concerned about, how you doing? She's like, Dad, I feel like I'm going to pass out. Okay, let's breathe. This is going to hurt. Let me clean you up. Let's breathe some more. It's okay to scream. It's okay to feel this. I'll hold your hand. Let me hold you. Let me pick you up. Let me embrace you. Let me tend to your wounds. This is how we heal. And so post-awakening, we tend to go through this period where we need to be a good nurse to ourselves, to our human self, to our body that's gotten so beat up. Because when you're a good nurse to your human body, the body gets the message, oh, I can relax more deeply and fully. I can let go. And then the chakras all start to open up naturally and bloom like 7 flowers. But if your body starts to open up and starts to purge all this pain, and we do what most people do and say, you're messing up my awakening experience. You're not allowed to have crazy thoughts, crazy energies, crazy emotions, whatever. Oh, I did something wrong. I need to, put the jack in the box back in the box. This is what almost everyone does. I did that a little bit, but my teacher straightened me out very quickly. And so we have to remember, there's pictures of the compassionate Buddha. Compassion means we're willing to breathe, we're willing to feel, we're willing to open. We nurse our wounds, we meet them with love. We don't say that's just a story. We meet it with an absolute love. As you meet your pain with an absolute love, the pain is liberated. You no longer hold on to the cellular memories. Your psyche begins to change. Your body begins to loosen up. Chakras begin to open. And the path really speeds up. Okay, here's a question from Jacob. Hey, Craig, how would one distinguish between personal emotional pains coming forward and non-personal emotions, pains from the collective human consciousness? I used to always think whatever I felt was mine personally. Yeah, that's a good question, Jacob. The question I ask real quickly is, can I find the origin of this pain within myself? Can I find it within my own self? So if it's like a childhood memory, it's like, oh yeah, that's mine. um, and if I find myself like spontaneously crying for no reason, I'll look at my life. It's like, is there anything going on in my life? No. Well, that's pretty boring. Nothing's going on here. Who have I been hanging out with? I'd look at that next. Are they in pain? Are those close to me in pain? So oftentimes it's that. And then I'll look to the collective. Look to the collective. I mean, sometimes it's really apparent. A couple of years ago when we used to get all those pictures on the news about, like, say, the war in Syria, I just see the pain, the refugees, mothers carrying children and bloody and scratched up and everything, missing an arm. I'd be like, oh my God. I just feel her pain. I'd start crying. I'd feel the pain of the country and start crying. Feel the pain of all those at war and start crying. Of course, that's obvious. But just to feel into yourself, Jacob, and say, like, do you feel a root to this? The more awake you become, you start to notice all these subtle places within you where pain is hooked into, where pain is attached. You begin to differentiate and discern what's mine, what belongs to whoever. I think it's a fun experience if you're like in a relationship and say you pick up your partner from work and they don't say anything and you just feel the energy of the car and it's just filled with fury or anger or whatever. You're like, okay, this is hers or this is his or this isn't mine. But most people, with codependency, they just take on everyone's emotions and feelings and think they have to fix them. But I think it's a hilarious thing. You walk into a room and it's just like, just like this heavy, where you're just like, oh, there's something really heavy here. It's not mine. But then of course, we want to be compassionate toward the one who's suffering. And so that's the big thing. I treat it the same either way, whether it's mine or someone else's, it's met with love. I mean, that's the right response, isn't it? If there's pain, you meet it with love. You meet it with love. I mean, our job is to be a bodhisattva. Who else is going to be a bodhisattva if not us? Who else? We can't wait for Trump to save us, or Biden. Nancy Pelosi, she's not going to save us. The politicians will not save us. They will not save us. We have to save ourselves. We have to save this world. And if you're in this room, God's wanting to work through you. God's wanting to work through you. Buddha nature wants to live through you. And so anyways, I greatly apologize to any of you if you emailed me and I just didn't get your email. Send it to me again next week. There was something else I was supposed to announce. Oh yeah, I should announce this in the beginning. I'm a part of one of these summits with lots of different teachers. If you want to see, I gave 2 talks during this. It's an online summit. There's details on my website about that if you want to check it out. You have to sign up, and I think it costs some money. It's like a whole online retreat type of thing. But I felt honored to be asked to be a part of this. So if anyone's interested, there's details on my website about that. And I am beginning to think about putting together an online retreat, maybe December or January. And so you can all harass me about that, and I'll try to put that in the works. But it just really came to me pretty strong the other day, and I'll just say this, because a lot of people have asked me, about that, and I'll just say this. This last year's been confusing with having my both daughters home from school, and just the whole thing with the coronavirus and everything getting shut down. And I was just really confused about how to proceed, and my schedule got really busy, and I was trying to get this book finished. And so there's just a lot on my plate, and I got really busy this last year. And so it just became hard for me to think about anything in the future. But I'll just say I'm planning on putting something together in the works. And just by the time it came to the weekend, normally people want retreats on the weekend. I might even just do it even some of the days during the week. But just with the workload I've had, I've just needed the weekend. And so that's just one of the things I've had to do as a self-care thing. And so I've prolonged putting a retreat together. Anyway, sorry to ramble on about that, but I'm going to try to put something in the works to let you know where I'm at. So much love to each and every one of you. I do hope you receive what I receive when I sit with you all. I hope you receive what I receive. I feel truly blessed to be here with you. Big thank you to everyone offering your donations, financial support. It's very helpful, truly, from my heart to yours. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a wonderful evening. Maybe we'll see you Wednesday. Goodbye for now. Good night, everyone.